Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be heard each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also see us on those options. You can actually listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You get more information about previous shows on my website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my lovely Zoom studio in downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Joey Novick, is comedian, author, an attorney, among other things. And Joey, you can feel free to wave to anybody who's watching this.
I just want to wave to everybody who's watching. I'll just give a big wave.
Okay. And I should mention that.
And thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, thank you for being my guest. And Joey's been a political comedian, camp counselor, very, very interesting, editorial director, attorney, busboy, radio show host, professional speaker, child actor, an elected official in New Jersey. I love it, but not necessarily in that order.
Yes, no, I didn't put those in the right order, so not necessarily in that order.
He's a professional comedian with appearances on MTV, Comedy Central, and Rascal Comedy Hours, and now Joey, the big time on Blaine's World.
On Blaine's World, I was waiting for this for the last 11 years. By the way, after this interview, I am going to retire because I've achieved all of my goals in comedy and in interviewing. So I thank you for having me. And it's been a while. I have not seen you. You're from, my first question for you would be, why would you want to move from New Jersey to a beautiful state like North Carolina? What would possibly have, besides low taxes, beautiful mountains, access to beach? Why would you want to do that? What would possibly be your, anyway, just kidding. You go ahead. No, it's your show. You go ahead and do what you want.
Tough decision. Joey has also appeared at hundreds of comedy clubs across the United States and Canada, including, perhaps we have to say, the most famous one, Comedy Cabaret. You appeared.
Yeah, Comedy Cabaret, Andy Scarpati. It's been there, I guess, 30 plus years. And I've played the club many times. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful room run by Andy Scarpati, professional and a really good friend of comedians. I have to say that a lot of club owners are in it for the money. Andy has always been a really an outstanding producer, creating an environment that really pushes the best that comedy has to offer.
And I think that's where I may have first seen you in person at Andy's Club, and I've seen you a couple times in person. In addition to Andy's Club, he's also appeared in concert at comedy clubs for Jerry Seinfeld, Robert Klein, David Brenner, Louis Black, Paul Reiser, a couple of people I've heard of every so often.
Yeah, I realized that I was getting very old in comedy when I looked at my resume and I realized I worked with people who are now dead. I mean, like David Brenner, Robin Williams I did improv with, and I'm thinking, it was a real tribute and a real pleasure to work with doing improv on stage with somebody like Robin Williams, because it was like getting to play basketball with Michael Jordan. You're never going to be that good, but it really pushes you to to stay at the top of your game.
And also that you've been now on the Blaine's World podcast, so that's up there.
I'm insulted. I'm insulted that you didn't even allow me the opportunity to mention that. Okay, that's how I'm insulted. I'm so insulted. I'm going to stay on the podcast with you. Okay, that is how insulted. That is how insulted I am.
But by the way,
just
I think
to let you know.
I think I also had the pleasure when I had a radio show. I think you went on my radio show as well. So
yes,
I appreciate
up
that.
In New Jersey.
Exactly.
Sure.
But let me ask you this, Joey. The question I always ask: as a kid, you grew up where?
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I was born in Brighton Beach. So everything that you see in the Neil Simon play Brighton Beach memoirs, I experienced. My parents bought a house in the Sheepshead Bay area, and that is where I grew up in Brooklyn.
As a kid, did you always know you wanted to be a comedian?
No, I realized I wanted to be a comedian when I realized I really had no other skills whatsoever. I have no talents at all. No, I actually, it's funny you mentioned that. When I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, my parents used to go to the Catskills a lot, to go to the hotels in the Catskills, like
Sure.
the Homewack and Grossinger's and
Grossinger's, yeah.
Kutcher's.
And what,
And there was a time,
Falls View? I was at as a kid.
Falls View, I've heard
Right.
Falls View, of course. And we were at a hotel, and there was a comedian playing there named Mousy Lawrence, who was a stand-up comedian. And I really wanted to go see him perform because I wanted to see live comedy. And my mother said no, because, well, he's going to do some dirty words. He'll do a lot of jokes in Yiddish. You're not going to understand it. My father said, well, look, let's take him and see what happens. So we sat way in the back. We sat way in the back of the room. And I was in a little suit and tie, and they introduced this man to big applause, maybe 500-600 people in the audience. And about every 10 seconds, he would say some words, and then he would say another couple of words, and the audience would explode in laughter. And I didn't understand what they found funny, but I was fascinated by this dynamic between an audience and a man just saying words to get people to laugh. And I said, how can I do that? How does somebody do this? And my father said, well, we watch the Ed Sullivan Show every Sunday evening. They always have stand-up comedians. If you do your homework and you are good all weekend, we'll let you stay up and watch the Ed Sullivan Show. So that is where I watched comedians. From Buddy Hackett to Alan King to Jan Murray to Dick Capri, all of these comedians that came from the Catskills era. In fact, I remembered a line. I was talking to another comedian. I remember a line that I understood that Alan King did on the Ed Sullivan Show, where he said, my wife and I checked into a hotel that was a nudist colony. And I took off all my clothes, and my wife looks at me and says, that's what you're wearing for dinner? And I thought that was, it was a great line. And I remember my mother saying, why do you find that funny? He says, because he's naked. He's completely naked. That's the way he's going to dinner. So that's where I got my start in, watching the comedians on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Do you remember your first appearance as a comedian?
My first appearance ever as a comedian, it's funny you mentioned that. I opened a show with a comedian, Bobby Collins, who you may know.
I know, yeah.
Chris Rush, who is unfortunately passed away. I got booked for $50. A college called me up. They'd seen me somewhere or whatever. It was my first paid engagement. And they said, this is my first paid gig. And they said, we'd like to hire you. And they said, we can pay you $50. And I was shocked that somebody was willing to pay me $50 to do a show. My first actual stand-up, I actually started in college. There was a student union building comedy cafe for music, and I would go down there and I would MC the shows. So emceeing the shows, I was just doing stuff off the top of my head, and it seemed so easy. And I didn't need to get laughs because it was emceeing. But I think that probably would count as my first gigs when I was still in college.
Now, the $50, do you still have that check framed somewhere?
No, I think I paid a bill with it. No, I don't think I ever cashed it. And I probably do have it somewhere because I was amazed that somebody gave me a check that said, Joey Novick, $50 for doing comedy. That was astonishing.
Your career kind of has always amazed me because you were doing comedy in college and doing these various gigs. But then what got you to become a lawyer?
So when I was in college at Brooklyn College, I had applied to law school, and I had started doing stand-up in the clubs at around the same time. And I made a law school out on the West Coast called Southwest School of Law in LA. And because I wanted to get 3,000 miles from my Jewish parents, and I was accepted in the program. And once I started doing stand-up comedy, I decided to put it off for a year. Now, what they would allow you to do is put in a request for a later acceptance for a year, and they would accept you automatically to the next class. So I did that. Then I called up my Jewish mother to tell her that I was putting off law school to do stand-up comedy. And I will never forget the words that my mother said on the phone. She said to me, "Oh my God, what are we going to tell your Aunt Lila? Now, to the day that she died, she completely denied that she ever said that. But those were her words. My Aunt Lila, her sister-in-law, had two sons also around the same age as my brother and I. And she would always brag. You know, like if I got a good mark on a test, she would call up, like, oh, Joey got 100 on a math test. And Lila would call up and say, oh, Mark published an article in the school newspaper. She would call back, oh, Joey got a great score on his SAT. So I will never forget, she was probably bragging to Lila that I was accepted to a law school. And then, oh my God, what are we going to tell Aunt Lila that you're putting off law school? You know, she's not going to believe that you made law school. You're going to make a lawyer out of me. It was so funny. And then the first time I did a comedy on television, I did, most of the bits were about my dad. It was, bits about my dad and jokes. So my mother calls me up and says, oh, how come you made fun of your dad on television? You didn't make fun of me? You wouldn't make fun of me on television? And like I said, I'm sorry, I'll make fun of you next time. So it was, Jewish mother, very strange.
No, but you were lucky, I guess, in the sense that your parents both approved of you doing comedy.
Well, I think, I think they sort of recognized I was the third son out of three. I was the youngest. And I think by the time I came around, they were much more, just like, okay, just let him do what he wants. Just come back alive. Don't, so I think they were, I'm not sure if they were supportive or not supportive. But as all Jewish parents wanted, they wanted me to major in something to fall back on. Like, like it was like, if comedy doesn't work out, what are you going to fall back on? Like there was something that else should be there. So I think that I think that they were glad that I was able to make a living out of it. That was a thing that I was able to book, because I was also a producer. I booked comedy and I also did stand-up comedy.
We'll talk about then the fact that, so you went to law school. Did you then become a practicing attorney?
Yes, I went to law school at the age of 47. I graduated at the age of 50. And I have a small niche practice of entertainment law. And I mostly handle comedy clubs, comedians. I mostly handle arts. I was previously the executive director of the New Jersey Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. So because of that, that put me in contact with a lot of artists. And that's my area of expertise in the law. So I handle trademark, copyrights, performance contracts, that kind of thing.
So it's kind of interesting. So that 1 year postponement, go to law school, stretch into like 23 years or something?
Yeah, about 28 years. By the way, I should have called up Southwestern School of Law and say, hey, I'm ready. I know it's been 28 years, but can I get in? No, I went to Seton Hall School of Law. And one of the things that I did to my mother that was a joke is that Seton Hall School of Law is a Catholic affiliated law school.
Sure.
And so I called my mother and I said, Mom, I got great news. I was accepted to Seton Hall School of Law and I got a $28,000 scholarship. He says, oh, mazel tov, that's great. I said, well, there's one catch. I need to sign an agreement that I accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior in order to get the money. And my mother was saying on the phone, you're not going to take that money. We're going to give you, you're not going to take that money. There's no way. And she starts yelling upstairs to my father, Bernie, get down here. Bernie, get down here. So my father gets on the phone and my mother says, tell your father you just told me. So I said, oh, Dad, I got a $28,000 scholarship. Mazel tov, that's great. There's only one catch. I have to sign an agreement that I accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior. My father, complete silence. And then my father says, look, take the money. We know you're Jewish. You know you're Jewish. Sign it. I don't care. Who cares? Take the money. And my mother's going, no, don't sign that. You're not going to take, And then I told them I was just kidding. They didn't really require that.
Wait, but were you kidding about the scholarship, or did you get a scholarship?
No, I actually did get the scholarship. I got the scholarship, but I was kidding around with them with regard to the signing the agreement. But, in addition to one of the things I did want to plug and talk about, the book that we wrote,
wait.
History.
Let me hold it up.
I guess I'm going to show that up.
Hold on 1 second. Fun book. We'll talk about it. But I love the what you call it. So go ahead, Joey, talk a little bit
Ha
about
ha
it.
history. So ha ha history is every day there's another event that happened on that particular day, and we wrote jokes about it. I mean, things like, January, I'm just making one up, January 9th, 1901, Albert Einstein publishes his theory of relativity. Upon telling his mother, his Jewish mother said, "Oh, so from this you're going to make a living?" You know, things
Well,
like that.
I'll read it to you. So today is what, March, we're taping this on March 27th.
March 27th. So
Yeah.
I hope it's a funny joke.
Wait, let's hope it is. But 1931, the things you learned, Joey, you teach me. I appreciate this.
Oh, that's good.
Leo Bentley of Lorain, Ohio, well, pretty impressive, bowled 3 perfect 300 games in a row. Pretty good stuff. We asked how he did it. He said, I was in a rush that day. I had no time to spare. Very good one. It's really clever. So talk about, I just love the book, and thank you. I just got my copy today, and it's, I wish I had learned history back then. So you wrote this with a couple other guys, is that the story?
Oh, yes, I wrote. So originally, it was my idea because I was I subscribed to Today in History, which is a website that would send you an email every day of things that happen. And every day I would look at that and I would think of some joke to write that I would put on Facebook. So after doing this for about 3 months, I said, boy, I think I really have a good idea for like a calendar or a book here. So I called a friend of mine. Neil Berliner, who is a writer. Neil Berliner has been a writer for Mad Magazine. He's written for Jay Leno. He's written for a lot of the roasts for the Friars Club. He's like a Maury Amsterdam joke machine. He's an incredible writer. And I'm not usually a joke writer. My comedy is more situational. My background was more from improvisation. So he loved the idea of the book. And he contacted Michael Morse. Michael Morse is a joke writer who's written also for Leno and The Tonight Show. He has his own podcast called Miserable Men, and he is the illustrator of the book. So all of the illustrations that you see in the book are done by Michael Morse. Yeah, that's all. That's all his work.
Really cool illustrations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Those are all his illustrations. And Michael, in the middle of the book, started getting so busy that we actually had to have an additional illustrator who we found quite by accident on the web, Mike Crum, who also put in a lot of the illustrations. So between Mike Crum, Michael Morse, Neil Berliner, and another writer I definitely need to mention is Ron Bo Phillips. He's a stand-up. He lives in LA. So the four of us put our heads together. We wrote this book. We self-published it. It's out on Amazon for about 3 weeks. It was the #1 humor book on sale, the new humor book, and it's also on the Wallbounds. It's also on Walmart booksellers on their website too.
So again, if you want to get a copy of the book, which I encourage folks to do, name of the book, I'll have you read it again. I can't see it.
Ha Ha History.
Okay, Ha Ha History. And remember too, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were putting this on Facebook from time to time and asking for feedback from people?
No, I wasn't asking for feedback. I was just doing it because,
No, but I'm saying, but you putting stuff on Facebook, right?
Oh, yeah.
And put you on the spot. Your birthday is when? I'll check what's on your
June
date.
11th. Oh, yeah. Let's see that joke.
So
I'm trying to remember.
Now this is good. I didn't know this. The things you learn, but Joey Novick. Wow.
You see, Blaine, that's part of this is people can learn actual facts that happened by reading the book. And I would say it's a great bathroom book. You take it into the bathroom, you flip through it, you go, oh, my grandmother was born on December 28th. And you look up what happened then. Oh, my Uncle Melvin was born on March 4th. You look that up.
Well, and by the way, we'll give a plug for the book. When you look it up, you can also send the book to Uncle Melvin, all these different people.
Oh, your grandmother.
Right. Yeah.
Send it to them on their birthday.
1979, on Joey's birthday, rock and roll legend Chuck Berry pleads guilty to income tax evasion and is sentenced to 4 months in prison. I didn't know that. While incarcerated, Berry pens a little-known song Chucky be bad. I didn't know that. Really? But this is so cool. What a great idea for a comedy book. Was this the first book you ever wrote?
Oh no, I wrote an earlier book called "You Can't Teach a Fish to Whistle." It's a series of conversations. My mother, when I would go to pick up my mother in Lauderdale West, when she was playing mahjong, I would sometimes get there a little bit early, and I would be able to hear the conversations amongst the women who were playing mahjong. So as I began to write those down, I put several. There's probably maybe 20 or 30 of them in a book called "You Can't Teach a Fish to Whistle," and it's just conversations. Like there was one that I just put up on Facebook earlier this month. There's a woman that says, "Oh, March. It was very cold this morning for the 1st of March." And another woman says, "Yeah, March goes in like a lion and out like a lamp." And then another woman says, "No, it's not. It's not lamp. It's lamb." Says, "What are you talking about? A lamb doesn't go out. A lamp goes out. A lamb doesn't go out." Then another woman says, "I bought some bulbs at Costco that are supposed to never go out." Then another woman says, "I hate going to Costco. I can never find parking there." And it's just the most ludicrous, ridiculous conversations that I've overheard. There was another one that I put up the other day where there's a woman sitting with my mother at the Passover Seder, and the woman says, "Oh, I bought this new matzah that is made by an Italian company." Says, "What kind of matzah is made by an Italian company?" And the woman says, "Oh, here's the box. It's called Noino matzah." And my mother says, "That's not Noino. You have the box upside down. It's onion matzah." So
I'm
you
thinking
can't write this stuff.
I'm listening to these, Joey. Boy, would this be a great podcast as well? I don't know if you've ever done that, but to put these routines on podcasts would be so much fun.
Yeah, I've actually written. I put all of these into a play called "You Can't Teach a Fish to Whistle." That's a Jewish expression. That's a part of another conversation where somebody says, "My grandson Nathan, I don't understand anything he does." And another woman says in Yiddish, "Well, you can't teach a fish to whistle." And then another person says, "Well, wait a second. Is Nathan the fish or are you the fish? And who is doing the whistling? Are you whistling or is Nathan whistling?" And another woman says, "Well, I think," and another woman says, "No one's whistling because you can't teach a fish to whistle." And it's just that kind of insanity.
How about teaching a comedian to become a politician? So in your spare time, I couldn't believe this years ago when I heard all of a sudden it was Flemington, wasn't it?
Yes, I live in Flemington. Flemington is I just went out there. I think I lost her. Oh, just for a second. I live in Flemington. I ran for the borough council there. I won my first time around. In fact, I wrote a solo show called "Comedian Elected to Town Council in New Jersey," which was all about my experiences of running and winning the council seat. And I have a show. I did it at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. I did it at the Capitol Fringe Festival. But I got elected the first time I ran, and my opponent attacked me. True story. My opponent attacked me for being a stand-up comedian. He said, "You're not going to take it seriously. You're just going to make jokes all the time. You're just going to use it to have an audience." And when I told my mother this, she said to me, "Oh, maybe you shouldn't have let them see you perform, because I guess they know." And I ended up winning, and I served for 15 years there.
15 years. And then did you eventually just step down or you had enough of it?
Oh no, I served 15 years. I sort of got. I mean, I'm still involved in politics. I've managed a couple of congressional campaigns. I have been working for other candidates. But for me as a candidate, 15 years was enough.
Well, yeah, and to be on town council for 15 years.
I'm sorry, what?
To be on town council for 15 years.
Oh yeah, 15 years. I was on 12 years, and then I was off for a few years when I went to law school, and then I ran again, and I ran for one term, and I had a great deal of fun, because there's nothing more fun than being in politics and having local people stop you on the cereal aisle of ShopRite and complain about what time their garbage didn't get picked up the day before. So it's, it's just, it is what it is. I enjoyed it very much.
Unfortunately, though, that's changed, that used to be a kind of an honor, I guess, to be in politics and to, be respected. And now to have to put garbage, people have to put up with it. It's a shame.
Oh, I didn't do it to get, I didn't do it. If I want to get disrespected, I can just stay home. I mean, I didn't need to go there to be disrespected.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's a shame.
I could do the Blaine Greenfield podcast.
Yeah, saying, no, it's just a shame. The whole nature of politics has changed, so in the sense that it used to be honorable, and now who knows. So, just a couple of final things winding down here in terms of you've written a couple books now in comedy. What do you see yourself doing in the next 25 years?
The next 25 years, writing my will. No, I mean, I'm 68. If I get another 25 years on the planet, I will feel very lucky. And, what will, and somebody once asked, so what do you want your last words to be? I want my last words to be, the treasure is buried in, so.
Or no, I use the line, what were my last, I want people to come up to my casket, and say, he's breathing, that's.
He's moved. It moved. You moved.
My God. So, so just what's so cool about your life, you just kind of go through it and have fun with it every step of the way.
Well, I've taken a lot of different paths that I've enjoyed. I mean, God willing, I've been able to make a living, both as a stand-up comedian, now as an attorney. I'm still, still pursuing other creative areas. Like I said, I've turned You Can't Teach a Fish to Whistle into a play. So I'm sort of putting the last touches on that. I'd love to see that produced somewhere. I'm actually writing another. I've written 2 solo shows. One that I told you about called comedian elected to town council in New Jersey. Then I wrote another one called Jewishish, an Oi story about growing up Jewish in Brooklyn. And I thought of another story about my comedian London Lee.
Oh, sure.
Who, if you remember, London Lee was one of the first comedians that I ever saw on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I realized that I had met London Lee 5 or 6 times over the course of my life. And each time I've met him has been in a very significant time of stand-up comedy for me. And if I write this as a play, I'll probably include London Lee as the comedian that I saw when I first was 7 years old. And I remember seeing him on the Ed Sullivan Show. The last time I saw him, I was playing a comedy club in Florida. And, just the guy's been divorced 3 times, old, decrepit. He comes on stage fixing his toupee, making sure his teeth are in, and he's doing the same material that he did 30 years ago. So it was so interesting to see this man. And I thought to myself, I have 7 or 8 stories about London Lee. I thought that would make a very interesting solo show also, just about, about the history of stand-up comedy in the 1960s through the 70s till now, through the eyes of someone who has seen this guy perform several times. So anyway, I don't want to keep you beyond your time. I just want to plug Ha Ha History. You can get it. You can get in touch with me through my Facebook page is the best place. Joey Novick, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, are the best places to see what I'm doing. The book, Ha Ha History, you can hold it up again if you want. Hold that up. That's your copy. Oh, by the way, I didn't get a chance to sign your book. So do me a favor. You sign it, sign it to yourself, to Blaine. You're the best host ever, Joey Novick. Just sign it, and I will send you a note verifying the signature.
Okay, buddy. Hey, I want to thank you for being my guest on this Blaine's World podcast. Also, my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And Joey, hope to see you next time, which won't be soon. I'm in New Jersey. You be well, my friend.
And thank you for having me, Blaine.
Okay, be well. Thanks.